Welcome to the Healing Energy Collective, a space for mindfulness, embodiment, and healing. I'm Scarlett Chang, and I'm so grateful you're here. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're talking about Love is Blind, Season 9, not from a gossip or drama angle, but through a therapeutic lens. As a counselor in training, I think it's fascinating to watch these dynamics play out because even though it's a reality show, the emotional themes we see are deeply human. We all crave connection. We all want to feel seen, heard, understood, and chosen. And yet, our attachment patterns, unhealed wounds, and communication styles can make that really hard. Before I dive in, I want to be clear. This is not to diagnose, judge, or pathologize anyone. These are simply reflections on relational dynamics and what we can learn from them. Let's start with Joe and Madison. From early on, you can sense hesitation from Joe, especially after the reveal. The reveal was really a turning point. His discomfort seemed to grow, and he turned to drinking as a coping strategy. We saw this play out in Mexico and again in the kitchen scene, where emotions are boiled over. From a therapeutic perspective, this highlights what happens when someone doesn't have the tools to process and communicate emotions safely. I'm not saying that either party is wrong, but Joe has a difficult time communicating his true feelings, and when he does, Madison shuts him down. We see a lot of avoidance from Joe, and avoidance often looks like numbing through alcohol, distractions, or shutting down. While the other partner may react with control, criticism, or defensiveness, Madison wanted Joe to be absolutely certain about her. But a few weeks until marriage is a very short amount of time. And whenever he did bring up any hesitations, we see Madison unable to take this feedback and help process his emotions with him. So he felt very alone. And we see this avoidance culminate when Joe runs away from the tux fitting. And of course, Sabrina Carpenter's Man Child song plays. The challenge here isn't just miscommunication, it's emotional safety. If one partner can't express without being shut down, and the other can't listen without reacting, the cycle deepens. And we know from Joe that in his past relationship, he has a history of feeling stuck and not being able to communicate his true feelings. This is also an example of quiet quitting. In therapy, I might encourage a skill like mindful communication, pausing before reacting, and practicing validation for Madison. Something as simple as, I hear that you're upset. Can you tell me more? Rather than, you shouldn't feel that way. And for Joe, I would work with him on processing his true emotions and understanding why he has a difficult time communicating his true feelings. Perhaps growing up, he felt like he didn't have a voice or his needs weren't met. This can all culminate in our adult relationships. Next, we have Megan and Jordan. Their biggest challenge seemed to be lifestyle and financial differences. Money can be one of the most common stressors in relationships, not just because of numbers, but because of what money represents. It can represent safety, freedom, identity, and sometimes power. It's not that their love wasn't real, but when partners have fundamentally different values or visions for the future, it takes an immense amount of communication empathy, and compromise to bridge that gap. I do think it was a good choice on Megan's part not to walk down the aisle and reject Jordan at the altar because she knew that it was not going to work out. Often, when we're looking for partners, we might look for symbols. And in Megan's case, her father passed away from type 1 diabetes. And it seemed to her like a match made in heaven because Luca, Jordan's son, had type 1 diabetes. And sometimes we can hold on to these symbols, placing more importance in them as a sign that this relationship is meant to be, versus looking at more important incompatibility issues like the financial differences. Because long-term compatibility is built on acceptance, not just potential. A reflective question I'd invite listeners to ask is, can I accept this person as they are, not as I hope they'll become? Because we can't bank a marriage on potential and hope that someone will change. Another reason why Jordan probably seemed very alluring for Madison is she said multiple times, he's so different from the previous guys I've dated. And yes, we want to learn from our past relationships and be open to different partners, but perhaps Jordan was just a little bit too different from what she needs in her life. And that's okay. We date to get to know other people and ourselves and what works in our lives. Next up is Calabria and Edmund. Their connection had moments of warmth, but also deep emotional volatility on Edmund's part. That nice guy scene in Mexico where Edmund breaks down felt like a window into unresolved trauma. The nice guy fallacy is so important to look at because it shows that he doesn't honor her autonomy and her body as her choice. He then shames her and tries to guilt her into crossing her boundary for him, because she had expressed that there were certain aspects of physical intimacy she's not comfortable to experience before marriage. And once he finds out that the other couples have been physically intimate, he has this physical breakdown and says it's because he's too nice. But being nice doesn't mean that you expect a reward. It means that you honor your partner's boundaries, you work to regulate your own emotions, and you show up as partners. Sometimes unprocessed pain shows up as emotional flooding when we're overwhelmed by feelings we can't name or regulate. Now, this doesn't make anyone bad or broken. It means that there's healing work to do. And yes, Calabria is a social worker, so her desire to want to help him and save him might have felt like love, but was actually just a deeper desire to help fix and once again looking at his potential. And she also mentioned, like Megan, that Edmund was someone that she might not typically date in the outside world, outside of the pods. Emotional regulation and self-awareness and therapy can help us understand what's being triggered and why. Because when we're dysregulated, it's nearly impossible to connect in a healthy way. In certain aspects, Calabria seemed to struggle with holding space for that, but Edmund did have a lot of emotional intensity and unprocessed trauma. So her reaction is very human. It takes real emotional capacity to sit with someone else's pain without absorbing it or reacting to it. And they are in a high pressure situation where marriage is in a few short weeks. I needed to re-record this section, so you might notice I look a little different in the video because now it's nighttime. Let's move on to Annie and Nick. Annie and Nick's connection reflects a classic anxious avoidant dynamic. Annie seeks constant reassurance. She needs to feel chosen and secure. But when Nick offers stability, she sometimes pushes him away. It's an example of protest behavior, and this push pull often stems from early attachment wounds. The anxious partner equates closeness with safety, but may also fear abandonment so deeply that they test it, pulling away before the other can. Nick, while calm, sometimes minimizes her needs, which further activates Annie's anxiety. Annie is looking to Nick to fulfill her needs and to prove to herself that she's worthy. So it looks like there's a deep lovability and worthiness wound. She doesn't believe that she's truly loved. And so she's constantly looking to Nick to reassure her that she is, instead of fulfilling those needs of love and safety herself. We can think about this like a leaking boat. Whenever love or reassurance comes in from someone else, because Annie doesn't believe that she's lovable and fundamentally worthy, it just drains out of her. Therapeutically, I'd help Annie develop self-soothing and internal safety tools like breath work, mindfulness, and journaling, so her sense of self-worth isn't dependent on reassurance. This is something I see a lot, and it is very difficult, but it can be done. It just takes time and consistency. And for Nick, learning to validate rather than fix would create space for connection. It's not that Annie is too much. She's just longing for the kind of emotional consistency that her nervous system never learned to expect. The issue here that we saw with them is that it's incompatible attachment styles, and Annie has some deeper healing work to do so that she can show up in relationship in a way that's more grounded and calm within herself. In the breakup, it looks like it was slightly staged or refilmed based on Annie texting on her phone in the middle of it to her friend. I think that Nick could have approached it in a more compassionate way. Saying directly point blank, I'm not happy, is a little bit harsh, but you can see how Annie's desperately trying to hold on to some semblance of the relationship. What's really sad in this dynamic that we see play out is she has this fundamental belief that she's not enough, but then she pushes Nick away, and then it further reinforces the story that she's too much or not enough. And it's not that her needs are too much, it's that there's deeper healing that needs to be done. And a different partner can come in and help her meet her needs in a safer, more compassionate way. This is also a very high pressure situation. They're on television, there's a timeline to get to an altar. So it's a lot. Next up, let's talk about Casey and Patrick. Casey and Patrick's dynamic is another really telling moment in this season. They got engaged, but things unraveled before they made it to Mexico. Watching their interactions, you can see Casey's nervous system is in distress. She keeps trying to end things, but struggles to follow through. At moments when she's saying she wants to end things, break up, she also kisses him or clings to him, and it's confusing for both of them. This is a classic fawn response when the body appeases to avoid discomfort or conflict, even when our mind knows it's not right. Therapeutically, I'd work with Casey on somatic awareness, helping her locate what no feels like in her body and practicing staying with that discomfort instead of overriding it. We'd also explore where that appeasement pattern began. Often it's learned in childhood, where speaking up felt unsafe or unkind. With time, she could build the confidence to express boundaries clearly and regulate her body's fear response so she's not stuck in mixed signals or self betrayal. Because it's unfair both for her and Patrick, who is deeply confused. Then we see them go back to Denver, and he thinks that they're still in relationship because she didn't communicate what she needed clearly. She wanted the relationship to be over. She didn't feel that connection in person. Of course, it's very sad, and the way that she went about it was very hurtful to Patrick. And it's unfortunately one of the examples in Love is Blind that love isn't truly blind. And we don't necessarily need to villainize her because she didn't feel that connection, but the way that she went about it was not healthy at all. And finally, Ali and Anton. Here we saw another form of incompatibility through lifestyle and values. Anton's relationship with alcohol seemed to create tension and disconnection. And what really hurt Ali is she didn't find out from Anton. She had to find out through Anton's friend's girlfriend. And she felt like Anton was hiding that piece of herself. When one partner prioritizes health or mindfulness and the other leans into maybe a little bit of escapism or avoidance, it often leads to emotional distance. And alcohol itself wasn't just a problem, it was that Anton was lying and hiding it, especially when alcohol or large amounts of it would disappear from the fridge and Anton wouldn't take accountability. This is really not one is right, the other is wrong. It's that they're moving in different directions. In relationships, it's important to ask, are our lifestyles aligned with the kind of relationship we both want to build? Of course, we have to remember Love is Blind is still a reality show. It's edited, produced, and condensed into narratives that fit neatly into a season and is probably edited for viewership. But what we can learn is that real relationships are messy. They're not made up of grand gestures or perfect communication. They're built through small, consistent acts of care, repair, and understanding. I think it's very interesting that this is the first season that no couples got married. I think that this is a really good sign that people are taking this process seriously and really looking at the person in front of them, not just idealizing them or this potential for marriage. Sometimes people just aren't meant to be together, and that's okay. Compatibility isn't always about effort, it's about alignment. If you're watching this season and finding yourself triggered or reflecting on your own relationships, maybe where you've struggled to be heard, where you've overgiven, or where you've lost yourself, take a breath. You're human. We're all learning how to love better, communicate better, and heal the patterns that keep us disconnected. And if you want to deepen that healing journey, you can always explore the Healing Energy Collective membership, where we integrate somatics, mindfulness, yoga, and sound healing to support your nervous system and emotional well being. Remember that you are enough exactly as you are. Until next time, take care of your heart, and I'll see you then.